Good morning, almost afternoon, friends. Ash here, NPMP News. It's February 2nd, 2026, and we're still here doing this 6 years later. We're still here trying to figure out what's actually really going on in the world that we live in. We're seeing some huge events happening with huge amounts of information now being disseminated about the Jeffrey Epstein case, right? And the president's name is coming up more and more. The more these people say his name isn't in there, the more that they're being shown to be liars, because there's multiple different allegations against him now. There's an allegation that he witnessed an infanticide, the death of a young woman's infant in 1984 on a boat in Lake Michigan. There's another rumor that him and Epstein attended some private sort of auctions of children or some kind of meetings at Mar-a-Lago where all kinds of stuff isn't being insinuated about the president now. That he was auctioning off young children in some kind of auction at Mar-a-Lago, allegedly. There's other allegations have been coming out. You're seeing gold and silver, the price of gold and silver going completely insane. Where you saw they took almost $1,000 off gold already, right? By forcing it down. And then what happened with silver? Well, the same thing. It was trading at 104 in the Shanghai market, but it closed at 104 there. It had been as high as 130 something at the Shanghai market. And now look at silver's all the way down to almost $80 an ounce. At 79, down $7. And it was down $5 or $6 or $7, or no, it was down 30 something dollars, right? It was up, like they took 40% off of its price almost. But did that spook the market, the people in the markets? I don't think so. It spooked some people though that are who have paper contracts. It wiped out a lot of those people, right? I want you to listen to this gentleman. He's pretty well versed about silver and gold. This is from a site, The Hidden Economy. I forgot this gentleman's name, but he's pretty well versed in the silver and gold markets. And I want you to listen to what he says is happening, that this is a coordinated attack with China and possibly the United States involved. It could be that Trump is allowing this. He's not defending the gold and silver market. In other words, there's players in there doing arbitrage, and he's not doing anything about it, right? There's a spread between the gold and silver markets now at one point of almost 40%. In other words, at one point, silver was trading at $120 or $30 an ounce in Shanghai, yet it was only trading at $90 or $100 an ounce, whatever it got to, 117, and then it bounced back. So let's listen to this guy for a minute or two, and then we'll get on with the rest of the news. I just wanted to address what's happening with gold and silver because it's not natural. It's meant to scare the investor. You're seeing Bitcoin, XRP, and those also pull back in a big, big way. But let's listen to this gentleman's, what he's talking about for a minute.
If you have watched my previous video, I showed you exact level of 117, why silver crashed from there. But at that time, people were commenting, look, it's going up 118, 120. But anyways, before I show you the data, this morning when market opened, thousands of traders tried to sell their silver ETFs. Orders rejected. Circuit breach. Friday's crash was so severe that today's prices are still below the circuit limit. The exchange will not accept sell orders. People who held through the weekend hoping to exit.
So a lot of these people who are on paper, right, they were hoping that there wasn't going to be thinking it's going up the other way. They got burned, right? A lot of people got burned because they were thinking that gold and silver was on its way to 200, which it should have been if it wasn't manipulated falsely by whoever these forces are, right? That's my take on it. So here, listen now. It's same thing with the stock market, right? Let's say you're in a stock on big time margin, and IBM has a bad day. They don't make earnings, and it goes down 6 or 7 points. That could trigger a margin call. That's what happened to me. I had a margin call on a stock I was out on margin on, and I was at work that day. This is before cell phones, when you had a beeper. And yeah, the guy couldn't get a hold of me. He sold my biggest position, and I got burned. I lost thousands and thousands of dollars that day because that was the largest position I had, which had to be sold because of a margin call. So you don't want to go too much on margin, right? So let's explain what happens when you go too far out on margin and gold has a bad day. What happens to you? You're in trouble. deep fucking trouble.
Monday morning are now trapped. They cannot sell at any price. The system will not let them. This is happening right now.
Cannot sell at any price. Do you know what that means if you're an options guy or a futures guy? You're fucked. You're totally screwed. You can't get out.
Gold breaks through 4,500 and silver crashes through 72. This video explains why and how to make sure it does not happen to you. Here's what caused this. The weapon is called a margin hike. When you trade futures, you put down a deposit, usually around 10%. So if you want to control $100,000 worth of silver, you put down $10,000. That is your margin, your skin in the game. If the exchange decides to raise margin requirements overnight, you suddenly need more cash. Not next week, not when your transfer clears, immediately. If you do not have the cash sitting ready, your position gets liquidated. The exchange sells you out automatically at whatever price exists at that moment. And when everyone is getting liquidated at the same moment, the price at that moment is terrible. Rock bottom, the worst possible exit. One margin hike is survivable. Most traders keep some buffer, some cash on the side for exactly this situation. But what if there are 2 margin hikes? 3, 4? What if there are 8 margin hikes in 8 weeks? That is not survivable. That is extermination. That is exactly what the CME did. 8 margin hikes, 8 weeks. Each one designed to drain more cash from long positions. Each one tightening the noose. December and January, they hit traders with hike after hike. Christmas Day, hike. New Year's weekend, hike. Every time traders caught their breath, another hike. Then came the kill shot, January 13th. CME switched to percentage-based margins. Now when silver rises, your margin rises automatically. A trap that tightens itself. The higher silver goes, the more cash you need, even if you do nothing. And they did not stop after Friday's massacre. Monday morning, another hike. Then another one this week. 8 hikes total. For comparison, 2024 had 2 hikes the entire year.
Okay, so this is how I see this, and I'm not an expert by any means, and I'm not nearly as expert as he is, right? But I've been watching silver and gold for many years, watching the manipulation and disgust. What's happening right now? Gold and silver is going incredibly up, right? Why? Well, because the public wants it. The public realizes it's a good store of wealth. It's a hedge. A lot of people are nervous, especially people who have a lot of money. They don't want to be sitting there with millions of dollars in a bank account in cash, in liquid funds. They want it in something that's real, which is why when you buy land or apartments or things, it's called real estate. It's something that's real, right, in the world. It's a real asset. It's not cash in the bank that's actually not worth much because your dollar's not worth what it used to be. People historically like gold and silver for that reason, and it's going up, and the people that have been making a profit off of it keeping it down are losing their shit right now in a big way. These banks that have long positions on the short end of it, right, instead of wanting it to go up more.
2023 had 3, 2022 had 2. 7 hikes in 3 years was normal. 8 hikes in 8 weeks has never happened before. I went through 20 years of CME data. This is unprecedented. Each hike triggers forced selling. Forced selling pushes prices down. Lower prices trigger margin calls on other traders who were not even affected by the original hike. More forced selling, more price drops, a death spiral by design. That death spiral is what you're watching right now. Gold, 4,500. Silver, 72. And falling. But here's the part that kept me awake last night. This morning, same day as the CME hike, Shanghai Gold Exchange also raised margins. 20% to 26%. CME in Chicago, Shanghai in China, 14 time zones apart, same day, same action.
Yeah, they're keeping it down on purpose, but the point should really be, in my view, is that this stuff shouldn't be allowed. There should be no paper trade contracts at all. It should be, you want to buy gold, and you got to take physical delivery. You want silver, buy physical silver. That's it. And if you can't physically store it, then you don't have it. And that's it. And that's the bottom line. You shouldn't be able to manipulate these contracts, these paper contracts to manipulate gold down and up over the years with your money. It's like people trying to corner the silver and gold markets. They've tried to do that before, and it's if a couple of billionaires get together now, they could do it, right? Or a couple of banks get together, they could do it. And that's what they've been doing. These banks have all been shorting gold and silver for these, like JP Morgan, for years and making a profit. And the more it goes up, the more we hurt them. That's why they're trying to make it go down. So this isn't going to stop. It's not going to stop unless everybody sells their gold and silver at the same time, and they won't, right? I didn't sell anything. I bought the dip. German police have raided Deutsche Bank in money laundering investigation. That's a huge deal. UPI News. I put that up. I pinned that to the last week's dig because it's such a big story. What? The German police just raided who? Deutsche Bank, one of the largest banks in the world. The bank that bailed out Donald Trump more than once when his casinos went down the toilet, which is what they're supposed to do, right? They bled the casinos out. They laundered all the money they could through them, and then they went bankrupt. What they do is they use the skim. They have two sets of books. They show you how they do it in the movie, right? In what was the movie called? The gangster movie. I'll think of it in a second. Casino, right? Great gangster flick. If you want to see how the gangs made money and how did they get a lot of money to make those casinos, they used what? The unions, right? They took over several different unions. The fur workers union they took over at one point. The garment workers union they took over at one point. The longshoremen's union they took over. That's three different powerful unions that organized crime groups had control of at one point. Some Jewish, some Italian, later Italian, right, had control over the longshoremen's union and things like that. To the point where the United States government during World War II had asked the organized crime groups, hey, keep an eye on the docks, man. You see any German guys hanging around, let us know, right? Because Germans have been found to have, I don't know, swam out of a sub or something and came up in part of Long Island years ago, right? They caught German spies on Long Island. German police raided Deutsche Bank locations in Frankfurt and Berlin on Wednesday over an investigation into money laundering. Boom, that's huge. And they definitely have been, along with most of the other banks. Because when you got all that money from Iran-Contra, from all that coke money, where were you going to launder it? You got to launder it through big banks. There's no other way to do it, right? How do you think parts of Miami got built? Right? It got built with coke money. What's gold and silver doing right now? Silver's at 79.41, down 6.67. You don't think they're trying to make it go down 6.66? Sure they are. They're attacking it, right? Because why? Because it's going up to an extraordinary levels that no one's ever seen before. And people are saying, hey, why is silver going up so much? How come it never did that before? Well, because you've been manipulating it for 150 years. We've been making it go down as much as we can. We've been trying to corner the market and then keep it down. Keep it cheap, right? And you'd think you got some of the biggest silver mines the world's ever seen in Nevada, and they're not producing any silver. Why not? Sorry, so deport every single illegal alien possible, PJ Media. Yeah, that's what we should be. We've always should have been doing, not just leaving the border open. But is Trump really doing that? No, he's just deporting some. Not nearly enough, right? Yeah, we're 1 year into his. People saying nothing's being done or something's being done. Well, what are the big things that he's done? He's removed some people, right? He's not done any of the big things, though, that we thought still, right, that I keep harping on. He's talked about Area 51. He talked about med beds once and then never talked about it again, right? He talked about Area 51 once or twice. He said, yeah, there's some interesting stuff, but he never went in there that we know of. There's been no disclosure. There's been no 0 point energy. In fact, he's doubled down on nuclear and oil. Jeffrey Epstein nurtured Israel-Emirates ties, January 14th article 2026. So there's some stuff going to come up about Trump later we'll talk about. Private parties with him and Epstein, right? They wanted to take the cruise together, if you remember. Was that another possible auction? Of auctioning off these young women for a night or something, like sort of like a pimp? But if you have a whole, 25 women there on the boat, and they're all of, underage, then you could be talking about extraordinary sums of money that people would pay to do that in a safe environment, where they wouldn't have no chance of being caught, like on a yacht that's 2 or 3 miles offshore, right, with no cameras around. which is what they were trying to set up, it looked like to me, right? And that's what they did later. It's alleged that Trump and Epstein had set up these kinds of things. So the fact that these people keep saying, oh no, though, he was vetted, then nothing, well, if they vetted him, they should have known that he was all inside of hanging out with Epstein for years. How could you not know that? I knew it. I showed you all the times. That's why I was making all those posts and making all those pictures with him and Ghislaine all the time, because they were hanging out all through the 90s when I was going out too. I was clubbing in the 90s. I was going out. I knew all that, where these spots where he was. I seen Trump around. I come in contact with some of these people, right? Because I used to go out to some of the same spots that they went to sometimes, or you just happen to through the it's hard to what I'm saying, right? It's hard. People attract people sometimes, right? You attract certain people to you, both good and bad. And back then, you could get into some bad stuff, but you're around the wrong people, right? But Epstein also had Emirates ties. He was he had passports from different countries, right? Remember, he had another name. Remember that dig I did, Epstein's other name? Now we're talking about Chiliad all of a sudden, 4 years after I did the Chiliad dig, 4 years ago. Remember that dig? It was 4 years ago. And nobody ever picked up on that all that time. Now you know why this channel was suppressed so hard, because that dig was out 4 years before. It should have come out 4 years ago. It should have come out a lot longer. There were people talking about Chiliad back in 2007-8, and the internet just got rid of it. Mississippi and Tennessee were left in the dark as Arctic cold grips the South. It's still pretty cold here. It's 27 in New York right now. That's pretty balmy compared to what we've had the past few days. I woke up the other day, it was 9. That's like upstate New York weather. You turn on the radio, it's 9 degrees, with the wind chill is 7 below zero. And you're like, shit, I want to go outside, man. My car's probably not going to even start. It's been sitting outside all night, forget it. You're lucky if your car starts. If it's below zero like that and your car's been sitting all night, it might not start. The newer cars do. But upstate, if it's 25, or if it's 9 in New York City, which is warmer usually than the rest of the upstate, then upstate's probably like 5 or 2. They're suffering up there. Jet with deputy chief minister aboard crashes in western India. So that guy, somebody got assassinated, maybe. Suspect hospitalized after exchanging gunfire with CBP in Arizona. So you're seeing that's the other part of it you're seeing, is these organized attacks by groups inside this country who are being financed by, who knows, China, outside groups. It could be so many people want to destabilize the United States. But what's the end game of it? Well, sell off the assets. That's what you're seeing, right? They need the data centers. That's the end game of this thing. And these massive data centers use up two things that people need a lot of, which is water and energy. Right? They need water to cool all those fucking massive computers that they want to store all your data on and control you with, and process all your AI bullshit transactions on your fucking Amazon accounts and bullshit like that you're buying. Right? If everybody would just turn their computer off for a week, we could defeat these people. It would be that simple. Just don't buy anything for 1 week. Or even 5 days. Don't go on the internet for 5 days. Shut it all down. We do it. Watch how fast they'd fold if you don't buy anything on Amazon for 5 days. Or you don't go online. Department of Justice. New report finds no credible basis for the Inslaw claims. Remember, we were talking about the Inslaw affair, which happened. The reason I forgot about this was because I had been hit by a car in 1995, and this happened 94, 95. This was when this unfolded, which was a big scandal, right? And what basically happened in a nutshell was, like I said, Robert Maxwell had created some program called The Promise, or had been involved in the creation of it. Maybe he didn't create it. It could have been his daughter Christine created this also, right? She created another program called Paladin, I think it was called back in the day, right? That's how she got big. Or was it the other thing? What was it called? It was something internet related that got her big, right? And so these people create certain programs that sound like they're good for public consumption, but actually it's a spy, right? There's a backdoor in this stuff. And if that was the case for Chiliad, then there's a big problem here, because not only did you let a German national, Robert Maxwell's daughter, Christine Maxwell, have intimate access into government files that were top secret, probably, but nobody properly vetted this person who was running this company, Chiliad, at the time. And the question is, why didn't anyone in the U.S. government make a big stink about this before it was done? And how long did they have access into these files? And what did they do with that information? Was it sold to a third party for profit? We don't know. So they were saying that no, there was nothing with the Inslaw affair, that they didn't in fact weaponize this program and do it. It was they just shut the whole thing down. But I think the reality of it was that they had in fact weaponized this program, given it's sort of like with what's happening with the Pegasus, with NSO software that we looked into, with the Pegasus spyware stuff that had been found on State Department people's phones, at different people's phones and different people's computers, where once that gets inside your system, it completely takes over, right? It makes all kinds of other clones of itself, and it duplicates in the system, and it takes the whole thing over. And it gives access to everything back to whoever's running it from the other end of it, right? So we can look up this Justice Department.gov file if you want, and just check this statement out that came out. I'm not a robot. I am a real person. I am not AI. Excuse me. This is a Justice Department release from Tuesday, September the 27th, 1994. So some of you probably were just being born then, or maybe not even born. New report finds no credible basis for the Inslaw claims. Recommends the matter be closed. Washington, D.C., affirming findings of a special counsel appointed in the previous administration. So this is a special counsel had been... the previous administration was George W. Bush Sr. in this case, right? So there had been... This is coming out under Bill Clinton's tenure, in Clinton's first term. Affirming findings of... Oh no, am I wrong about that? Yeah, right. Bill Clinton gets elected in 92. Bush is a one-term president, 88 to 92, and then Clinton comes in for 8 years, right? Unless I'm on an alternate timeline, which could be possible. Affirming findings of a special counsel appointed in the previous administration, the Department of Justice today concluded that there's no credible evidence that department officials conspired to steal computer software developed by Inslaw, Inc., or that the company is entitled to additional government payments. The report also reaffirmed police findings that the death of Daniel Casolaro, a freelance journalist investigating the Inslaw matter, was a suicide. Right, that's the other part of this. This reporter who was investigating it suspiciously dies in a suspicious way that they label a suicide, which is bullshit. If you ever watched the movie Shooter, you remember they have that vest they could put on you and make you shoot yourself in the head, right? If you didn't see that, go watch the movie Shooter with Marky Mark. Sorry, what's his name? You know who I'm talking about. He's a sniper, and they ask him if he can hit this, how would you do this and that? They try to frame him for the president getting shot. Well, one of these guys, they have this vest they can put on you. It almost looks like shoulder pads, where your arm goes in this thing and they crank it and it makes you shoot yourself in the head. The case began in 1982 when the Justice Department awarded a $10 million contract to Inslaw to install case management software called Promise in U.S. Attorney's offices around the country. Right. And did that have a back door in it or not? And how is Robert Maxwell connected, if at all, or the Maxwell family connected to that, if at all, allegedly, right? If they are. I think there was something to it because if you remember, McAfee talked about that's what they do, and he did that to them to set them up apparently, and there was all these terabytes of data that McAfee had that we never saw. Remember, he had a dead man switch. Did we ever see that dead man switch? No. Not that I'm aware of. What is it? The Inslaw affair, a deep dive into the octopus, December 9th, 2024, so you can look into it more if you want to look into the Inslaw, Inslaw affair, which happened really in the 80s. But it sort of connects the Maxwell family. We can connect it all the way back to before Iran-Contra, even with them. Right? There's something going on here where, obviously, we know the CIA was sending arms down to South America. They got caught doing so. And they also got caught selling cocaine in the United States later and shipping that in. They also got caught. People died for bringing that information out, right? We remember that. We never really, they had the Iran-Contra hearings, but there was never really any repercussions for all the other people that were involved, not only in the gun running, but in the cocaine sales, right? And all of that networks that got set up, because they use organized crime and gangs to do that, and motorcycle gangs, to move the cocaine eventually through all the way across the country into and through the major cities to make the most profit from crack, right, in the 90s. Which spiked the New York crime murder rate to levels it had never seen before. I think there was 3,000 plus murders one year in New York, which was a record. I think it was 81 or 2 or 91. $1991 New York City murder rate. Something like huge numbers one year. Drop in homicides for 91. But there was still between 2,180 and 2,225. That's huge. Huge numbers for back. Now there's like maybe 600 or 800, which is like a third, right? They spiked the crime rates all across the country by doing that, and they populated the prisons with a lot of people, right? Addicts as well as people selling it. USAES Corp's subsidiary cancels mega project in the Chilean desert. The astronomical scientific community broadly opposed the hydrogen and green ammonia initiative. So again, here's people trying to exploit the earth, dig into the earth, and well, we don't need to, right? All the energy you need is all around you in the ether. That's what Tesla said. And he figured out a way not just to harness that energy, but to beam it to some other place if he wants to. He can beam energy, right? To a reactor somewhere else that he has set up. Or some kind of energy source that can hold that, a battery type or whatever, right? Advanced batteries. I mean, if we were doing electric cars in the 1900 period from 1899 forward, why we should have mastered that by now, but we never did because and made it so small that it could be run on some small cube the size of like a Rubik's cube or something in your car. That would be the power source, but we haven't done that because there's too much money in oil. There's a whole infrastructure already created around exploiting oil resources out of the earth, and they don't want to stop that and break that down. It's too profitable. Mexico's president confirms suspension of oil deliveries to Cuba, so they're trying to starve Cuba of oil, and they're doing that, actually. Cuba's going to run out of oil almost within weeks. UPS is going to reduce their workforce by 30,000 people. That's a lot. Has retired all MD-11 planes. I think those are the bigger planes they use for like overseas stuff. Is UPS getting out of the game? You know, a lot of these guys in UPS, they profit share, no? Well, wait a minute, you just reduced me. I'm a profit sharing person. Now all of a sudden I'm gone. Are you giving me a severance? Or am I just cut out and, hey, you can keep your shares and do whatever you want with those, right? I guess. Some companies allow you to, if you work at a company that's traded publicly in the United States, for instance, you might be able to acquire shares of the stock, right? Which is always a good thing if you were doing. I would, if you have confidence in the company you're working for, I'd suggest doing that as much as you can. It's like when you used to get a drip in the stock market, you get a little drip thing going. Yeah, you're buying maybe one share of Wendy's a month, whatever you're doing. You're doing something a little bit, right? But it adds up, right? Maybe you're just doing $40 a month in your stock account, trading account thing you're doing. But they have these stock account trading clubs of people and women and different people that got together years ago and over time, right, acquired huge sums of money in stock because they've been acquiring certain stocks, blue chip stocks that they found attractive. What's going on with UPS? Here's my Chiliad dig I did from 4 years ago on rumble.com entitled Chiliad. Christine Maxwell created Chiliad program. I don't know if she created it necessarily. Later on, she may have been the CEO of the company along with some other players. She might have had a hand in creating it, though. That was part of what 9/11 was about, pushing us towards this authoritarian future where everything is going to be in a database somewhere, and that's going to keep us somehow safer. But when we know everybody's face, it's like with Instagram, the same thing. I went on Instagram, I got caught up with these mesh-tastic devices. I don't know if you've ever heard of these mesh-tastic devices. It's like a cell phone, but there's no carrier, right? And you could do, I don't know if you could talk on it, but you could send it's open source off-grid encrypted mesh communication platform, right? It's called Mesh-tastic. It's super interesting to me. I think this is the future where you have a regular phone and it's like, you're basically, I don't know if you could speak over it too on a phone. I think you can. And you can set up your own grid where it's off the grid, it's encrypted, and the messages pass through the user devices to get to the person where it's supposed to get, and it's all encrypted. And it's like little small phones and stuff, so you can check out Mesh-tastic, Meshtastic, like Mesh-tastic. And it's the devices themselves aren't too expensive. I saw one for like $90, where it's like a cool little walkie-talkie. I think that's the future. If you just want to text, where like the only problem is the range on them is like maybe 10 miles or less. So that's until they have large amounts of network set up over the. I'm sure the government's not going to like that. Why? Well, because it's all encrypted. They can't follow it, right? They can't take your data. They can't follow your text messages and where you're going. The Palestinian Authority paid over $200 million to terrorists in 2025 despite ending the program. Report: the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas ordered an end to the Pay to Slay program last year. They call it Pay to Slay. That was just the news. The PayPal mafia includes tech titans like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and Reid Hoffman. All these players are still around, and they're doing, and some of them are, and 2 out of the 3 are mentioned already in the Epstein files, right? Musk was planning a trip to Epstein Island that he never went on, but he was talking about it. Maybe he wisened up and saw who this guy was, that he was, and what he was really doing, because when you got $1 billion, you can bet that you got to be careful where you go and hang out, and who you hang out with, right? You can get in a lot of trouble. But when he launches PayPal, who does he launch it with? Thiel, right? That's his boy. They start PayPal together. And then they make it so almost impossible for anybody else to do something similar, right? Because if we were really an open sort of network, you should have another way. Well, there is Venmo and other stuff came out later, right? That was sort of like that, where you can send money quick to somebody if you have the same account, right? Border czar Holman meets with Minnesota officials following immigration operation tensions. Then you got all the tension in Minnesota with all these operatives coming in, right, paid that Trump never looked into. never dealt with Soros or Handrog Weiss or these people that we all identified years ago who were doing stuff here. What's the end game of it? Well, we have a lot of land that these people want, especially the stuff that has gold on, silver on it. Right? If you go to and buy certain land in parts of Nevada, they could have, you have to check. Does it come with the mineral rights? Do they transfer? They normally don't. Go try to find a piece, 100 acres where the mineral rights transfer. It's going to be a much more expensive piece of land than if it's just 100 acres in the middle of Nevada somewhere, where the mineral rights don't transfer. What about the water rights? Right? There's people that are buying the mineral rights of other people's land. That shouldn't be allowed, technically, I don't think. I mean, if I was running a country, that wouldn't be illegal. In other words, every transaction you should be acquiring the rights to whatever's in the earth and to the sky above, right? But in most places, you're not going to allow some skyscraper to build on top of your house, right? And if you're in a country setting, that's not going to happen. But in the city, you might have a 4-story building that you bought that your parents owned from years ago, and they rented a few of the apartments out, and now the city changes the rules, or there's the zoning changes where you can now build 2 more stories on top of that building if you want. Somebody might want to do that because I can now make my building worth more money and rent those other apartments out, right? One of my listeners was talking about what she thinks about Ghislaine in the headlines. Is she going to be, she going to be allowed to walk away at some point? Why aren't certain temples why are you seeing Chabad get attacked? Is that because some people are putting out propaganda that says, well, Chabad's really the problem here. They're the ones doing it all. And if that's your position, then you're not looking at the whole picture, right? You're looking at some part of the picture. Am I saying that there's not something wrong going on in there? No, there is something wrong going on in there, for sure. There's a lot of those kids inside those areas and inside those groups are being being molested. Yeah, it happens at a very high level in those communities, unfortunately. And that's something that's gone on intergenerationally, just like it's gone on in some other regular schools where you're seeing how many pedophile teachers have been arrested in the past 5, 6, 7 years. I lost track a long time ago. Remember, we were looking into Dances with Wolves actor Nathan Chasing Horse. He was now, of all the crimes he was accused of, convicted. He's now facing 25 years to life in jail for all the different things he's alleged to have been accused of doing. A Nevada jury convicted Dances with Wolves actor Nathan Chasing Horse on Friday, finding him guilty of sexually assaulting indigenous women and girls in a case prosecutors said exposed years of hidden abuse. And this is just one instance. I mean, if you think this is just the only person that got caught abusing indigenous women, I could take you to a bunch of reservations where you can get dozens of people coming forward saying, hey, we got all kinds of lists here of women that have disappeared over here. Same thing goes for Canadian indigenous tribes. Same goes for Alaskan indigenous, right? Up into Canada, same thing, where there's networks of people that go into these areas and abuse these women, kidnap them for who knows what. But there's all kinds of stories, and if you go look into it, there's all kinds of statistics that will back this up that the government doesn't want coming out, right? We know that. Jurors found Chasing Horse guilty of 13 of the 21 charges, so that's the majority he faced, most involving a victim who was 14 years old when the assaults began. He was acquitted on several sexual assault charges tied to a later period when the victim was older and living with him and other companions. He faces a minimum of 25 years to life. So good for you. You deserve that for what you've done. And not only did you do that, you did it to your own people, which is even worse. You abused your own. Ex-First Lady Kim Keon-hee has been sentenced to 20 months in prison and corruption trial. UPI News. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton announces her retirement. She's a Democrat. That's good news. So are a lot of these people stepping aside? Yeah, but is anyone in Gitmo getting tried in secret tribunals? Not that I've heard of. Some of these other people are saying that. They all got tried in Gitmo. Really? All of them already? It's like, remember when they hung like Saddam? Like, why was the video so grainy? You should have been right up close and like high def. I want to make sure that's him, right? Why is he filmed from far away? The mask, the hood is just off his head for a moment. He's got a long beard. You're not sure who the hell that was. Could have been anybody. Some dummy with a mask on. Right? FBI searches Fulton County election hub and criminal probe. So remember, that's where all this stuff is going wrong. Remember, there was the leak. They shut it down. Ruby Freeman, the daughter, right? Passing the ballots through 4 different times and then passing another one of those memory sticks to somebody. Remember that? She passed the whole memory stick off to somebody. Where did that memory stick go? Remember the guy in Arizona whose house got raided and he had a whole bunch of memory sticks? And Trump only lost Arizona by what, 6,000 votes? 7,000, 8,000? How'd those memory sticks end up going off grid, right? Remember, the memory sticks certain votes were out of the chain of custody in certain areas. That's one. And two, what was the other thing? Some areas, some counties had more than 100% turnout, which is impossible. If 350 people live in the county and 400 people vote, well, that's a problem. Where did those other 50 people come from? They shouldn't have been there. So what, are they now at this late stage going to say, well, 2020, yeah, actually it was rigged? And what? So what does that mean? You're going to invalidate everything that Biden did? You can't. The damage has already been done. You could reverse it. And then what? Say Trump's going to get 4 more years, but he's too old. How are you going to make him stay young that long? You can't. You already got doubles of him walking around. You don't even have the real Trump out there. These people are in deep trouble because where's the real Trump? Now they're trying to make some lie up with Benjamin Fulford. Oh, yeah, he's in a Russian base. He resurfaced, dude. Okay, whatever, man. How are you going to prove that Trump's the real person? Unraveling the truth. Did Elon Musk ever really own PayPal? The shocking secrets revealed. I thought he did. Ohio Democratic Attorney General candidate says if elected, he'd kill Trump, quote unquote, with capital punishment. I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt based on evidence presented at a trial. Well, he might have access to all the other stuff, right? I mean, there are rape charges against Trump allegedly out there in this system that are still going through the courts, allegedly. Or some of those cases he settled, though, right? He settled court cases that you can't see what the settlement was with certain people. ICE captures 2 illegal aliens fleeing arrest in Maine after local lends them ATV. Local residents in Waterboro have reportedly been cheering on ICE agents, with some even providing direct assistance, like the loaned ATV. That's rare because you see in Minnesota, in Maine, they're probably like, yeah, get these people out of here. They're doing illegal weed grows. They're polluting our forests. Plus, where is all the weed, the shitty weed that they're growing going? You can't really sell it in New York anymore. They got rid of all the fake weed places. You only have to have a licensed dispensary now to grow weed here and sell weed in New York. And there's a ton of weed being grown in New York State now. Majority of it indoor. It's a huge cannabis business here. It's generating billions and billions of dollars in business. Tesla fans are furious as Elon Musk turns features like full self-driving into subscriptions. But you can't even do it. I thought you junked the self-driving feature. Is it now subscription? I thought you stopped the self-driving feature because the car can't self-drive itself. Anti-ICE signal chat links members to AG Keith Ellison's office to report feds in Minnesota. Participants were instructed to report federal agents directly to the Minnesota Attorney General's office using the form. So there's also been chats that have been found out where people are plotting against ICE. They set up huge networks of databases where they have not only ICE vehicle descriptions and license plates, they're starting to try to dox ICE members. So these people are going to have to be shut down because they really are. I mean, it's starting to look like we're moving towards a civil war with these groups. I don't know how they're going to deal with New York, with what Kathy Hochul's saying now, that the police cannot anywhere in the state help ICE at all. Or I mean, this is the problem. You know why the ICE facilities are being attacked, because the police aren't keeping the protesters back. That's their job, and they're not doing it. They're letting these, in some places like blue cities and states, they're letting the ICE facility get attacked on purpose. Man arrested after Ilhan Omar was attacked. That looked like a fake incident. He sprayed her with apple cider vinegar. So, you know, it wasn't like, I thought it was going to be like, I don't know, pork fat or something, right? That looked like a staged event to me. Protesters swarmed Tim Walz's office after he signals a willingness to work with Trump. The crowd was heard shouting "Justice delayed, justice denied," and held signs that included sayings such as, quote, "Justice for Alex Pretty and fuck ICE." Post-millennial. Here's why many say the Ilhan Omar assault was staged. Yeah. I said, does this nightmare ever end of these people? I'm just so sick of looking at them, seeing them. Years later, we're still dealing with AOC and the squad, right? All these bullshit. Hazmat crew reveals what liquid attacker sprayed on Rep. Ilhan Omar. It was apple cider vinegar, which I'm a big proponent of, right? I've told you to try to use that in your juices, or start with like a tablespoon and a glass of, like, I don't know, juice or water or something, that way you don't taste it, because it doesn't taste particularly great. Some people use it as a salad dressing. I'm not a big salad guy. I try to eat my greens, but I don't like salads particularly too much. I can't eat like a whole salad as like my meal. That wouldn't work for me. Zoran Mamdani offers few fixes to New York City's $12 billion budget hole. Yeah, you can't. The problem is, if you tax the billionaires that are here, they'll leave. And once they leave, then your tax, your rating, or the money that you generate from taxes is going to fall huge when even one billionaire leaves, because they pay such a big amount of taxes, especially if they have a corporation here. So if they have a corporation that they run and they live here, it's a double win for New York. But in that, there's only so many billionaires here. You can't close the budget gap that way. There's too much money being siphoned out of the budgets over the years and stolen, and it's now causing a problem. He doesn't have any fixes because he doesn't know how to balance a budget. He's never run a company before where you've had to balance the books even. Maybe he's had to balance his checking account. I don't think so. He only had $2,000 or $3,000 in his bank account before, which to me sounds unbelievable. I don't know how you're going to pay your rent and bills and all your stuff with $2,000 in the bank when your rent is $2,000. New York City Socialist Mayor Zoran Mamdani shows off trendy custom Carhartt jacket with a cringe-worthy slogan on the collar. Yeah, he had his own jacket made. He's so into it, right? And there's stacks of garbage all over the city because NY sanitation isn't picking up because of all the snow that's still on the sidewalks, that's in ice that's not, melting because we've been in this extended cold snap. This is the coldest winter I can remember in a very long time. Has there been colder winters? Yeah, I can remember one winter where the Hudson River completely froze over when I was a kid. That would have probably been somewhere in the 70s or 80s period. But there was at one point when the maybe 40s or 50s, where the East River completely froze over in a very cold winter, and they had actually dragged a small shack onto the ice, and they had made a bar there for a week or two while it The cold snap was hanging over New York City back then. Here's the Minority Report movie. That's what we were talking about. Part of this is they want to put in the pre-crime, maybe, right? Like Minority Report, where if I have everybody's profile and on you, what you consume, all the stuff you watch, your bank history, your criminal history, if any, how much money do you have, your political leanings, who are your friends, then I can, once I have everything like that on you, I can use predictive analytics on you, right? I can use predictive analytics to see if you are going to commit a crime before you actually commit a crime, which is bullshit because you can't do that. You don't know what somebody's going to do in the future unless you have a time machine or the precogs. Right? They have the precogs, remember? They're laying in the water. We got a Red Bull, right? Red Bull means murder's coming. Murder, death, kill. Silver was at 120, right? 4 days ago. Look, it hit 120 an ounce. Gold was up 86.40 at the end of a massive run. It was at 55.20. What's it at right now? Not 55.20. It's at 46.89. They just knocked $600 off gold. It's down another $230. No, $220. There's silver down 666. I told you. Excuse me. Told you silver was going to be down 666 at some point so they could send the message. They knocked palladium all the way back down to almost 16 where it was before when we were watching it. They took all... Don't think that Bitcoin's not getting slapped around. Bitcoin's getting hurt real bad too. So is XRP and those other stocks. Bitcoin's at 79,000. It was at 120, so they took about $50,000 off of that altogether, right? Ethereum is down to 2,300. That was at 4,000 plus. XRP's down to $1.65. It was at $3. These are starting to rebound a little bit, but not much. They don't want you in anything like this, right? Especially don't want you in silver and gold. You could see why. If I were you, I'd be buying the dip if you can. This might be your last chance because once this goes away, what's going to happen is they're going to find out who is doing all that. They're going to have to hold these banks to account and force them to liquidate them, close. JP Morgan should be forced to close. And they should have probably gone out of business in 2008, along with Bear Stearns. Borders are Tom Homan warns left-wing groups funding attacks on ICE. Justice is coming. They should... I don't understand what's going on. I really don't anymore with that. Because you never brought these people to justice, and the Antifa's been fucking around since 2016. Or earlier. So friends, I need to get a drink. I'm going to take the first break. About an hour in. It shouldn't be a too long show. Trying to keep the shows a little shorter for my voice's sake, and a lot of information came out since the last 4 or 5 days, so I especially wanted to do a show now to address what's going on with silver and gold. I don't think that this is natural, the movement of it. I think the movement of it up was more natural. You're seeing now the powers that be, the banks are in trouble because some of them still were holding long-term shorts, I'm assuming, on silver and gold then they were being forced into margin calls because of how much gold and silver were going up, right? If you have a short on silver and you think it's going down and all of a sudden silver's going up $5 a day, $10 in 2 or 3 days, and silver goes up $200 or $300 or $400 in a week. Silver went up 60%, I think, in a month or less, so it's a huge gain. That triggered some of these big banks having huge margin calls where they have to sell. But somebody's also raising the price of how much it costs you to do these trades on paper now, because I don't think they really want to do it anymore, right? It shouldn't be allowed that you can control the market via these paper contracts, in my view. It should be illegal. You should just buy silver and gold. If you want to buy physical silver and gold, then buy it and take possession of it and hold it. So friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching. My name is Ash. This is my news punditry show I've been doing for over 6 years. Well, this is our 6th year, so over 5 years. It's been a long, hard road for me, especially both spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Especially last year wasn't a great year for a lot of people. So I hope you're doing well, trying to stay above it all, trying to be sort of like the Stoic. Right? Just because people come at you with negativity doesn't mean you have to accept it, right? You ever have someone up in your face giving you some shit? Well, you don't have to take it. Just let it roll right off you. Hey, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I'm not going to let your bad day become mine, though. Right? It doesn't have to be. I've been keeping up on my workouts, trying to stay positive, keep my vibration high. I feel like a sort of two worlds breaking apart. Some people are talking about where, if you're not in a higher vibratory state, then you're going to go into the lower vibration earth. I don't know how that works. All I know is that a lot of people who used to be in my life when I was more negative in a negative vibration are not there anymore. And that must be because my vibration is higher now. And so like attracts like, right? If you're in a negative headspace, try to get yourself out of it by any means possible, right? By working out, stretching, doing yoga, getting a massage, doing a hike, getting out in nature, grounding, shielding, doing some push-ups, maybe you doing some sparring, doing some shadow boxing, anything, right? Just get your body moving. Do some jumping jacks, push-ups, anything, man. Just get off that couch for 10 minutes. Do something where you get your heart rate moving a little bit. I'm not saying go run a marathon right away. You're going to kill yourself. Start with 10 push-ups. Start with 20 push-ups. Start with something, right? Start with a hike or a walk to the store and back. Anything to get out of that funk, right? I know. I've been there, man. I get it. So I hope you're well. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get this beverage and refresh myself. And we'll finish up strong, all right? I really do appreciate you, all those people who have been listening all these years. I do appreciate you more than you'll ever know. So I'll be right back, friends. In the meantime, you can do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, all right? I'll be right back. Thanks. Okay, guys, thanks for that break. I appreciate you. I'm back. Borders are Tom Homan warns left-wing groups funding attacks on ICE that justice is coming. But what's going on with silver and the gold manipulation? Didn't they just catch whoever these people are in the act of manipulating the market even more? Why was so much... Who was removing physical silver out of the COMEX market? And why was that done? Why is silver moving overseas? Does the COMEX market even have any silver anymore? Because when I ordered my silver, I was told it'll ship in a week or in 10 days. Which means they don't have it right now. You got to wait till more comes in. We're getting a lot of orders. When you're buying contracts, it's just a piece of... It's just something that's a computer on the computer screen, right? But it's different when you're owning physical gold. You actually have the silver in your possession. Or the gold in your possession. Not just a contract that allows you to buy an exponential amount more with a small amount of money. You can use $10,000 and get $100,000 worth of contracts on silver, right? That's how these people manipulate the market so easily. How China supercharged its birth tourism and scammed American citizenship for up to 1.5 million babies? It's way more than that. It's way more than that, because you have to go back to the 70s and since they've probably been doing it since then. Not the 80s for sure. Because you got to remember, our borders have been wide open for decades, right? There's been parts of Texas, Arizona, New Mexico border where there's no fence at all. You could just walk across. You could drive across. There's people flying low-flying airplanes across under the radar 500 feet or less, right? Doing drug runs for years. That's how they were bringing marijuana over from, into parts of California back in the day, right? From Mexico. Just have a guy fly a plane over an area where you're going to be, meet up at a certain location, and he dumps it out of the plane and he leaves, right? Car repeatedly rams entrance of New York City synagogue and disturbing attack that cops are probing as a hate crime. Yeah, now that the mother's saying, well, the kid is, disturbed. He's got some issues. Well, why do you have access to your car keys? If he's crazy, why would you give him access to the car? So we can go crash it into a Chabad headquarters? Okay. Nobody was injured. Your car got pretty much destroyed or damaged. ICE ends enhanced operations in Maine amid uproar over Minneapolis shootings. But some of the people in Maine were happy that ICE was there. I guess Maine wants illegal Chinese grow houses and other illegal aliens in their state, I wrote. ? Driver arrested after car crashes into Chabad headquarters. Double confirmation. UPI. Senate Dems threaten another shutdown. Yeah, but Chabad is part of the problem, right? But nobody's arresting them. Netanyahu's still doing his thing. They're making Trump Gaza right now with Kushner and them are making plans to take a piece, right? They're all going to get their slice. It's $1 billion buy-in. Venezuela says release starts of assets frozen during Maduro's reign. The government has not provided figures or timelines for the resources it says are being unblocked. Yeah, what about all the people's money who died, who you killed? Well, a lot of those people may have had assets. What happened to that? All the people that starved to death, they probably didn't. Their money was worthless in the end, right? Because there was no food. What's the point of having money if there's no food to buy it with, right? You can't buy any food, you die. Yeah, you starve to death. That's why some people think it's good to own a piece of land. Why? Well, because I can go there, get some raised beds going, or a greenhouse, whatever, or a geothermal greenhouse under the ground, so I can grow year-round, whatever the climate, right? You could be in very cold places and make a geothermal greenhouse and grow fruit all year round, or grow vegetables and different things. There was a guy doing that in Minnesota, I think, where it often can get 20, 30, 40 degrees below zero, had a geothermal greenhouse, and for years he was growing some of the best fruit, peaches, and things like that anyone had ever tasted. If I had the resources and knew how to do it, I would make a geothermal greenhouse. It's the best way, because it doesn't matter if it's really hot. It doesn't matter if it's really cold. I can keep a mean temperature down there around 58 degrees or so, maybe 60, whatever it is, maybe 55 in the winter, and that's enough that I can grow. You can look into a geothermal greenhouse. There's plenty of people doing it. Did Ilhan Omar's husband's $5 million winery just disappear? Asking for a friend, PJ Media. Yeah, it looks like it did just disappear. Or did you change it into someone else's name? A lot of these people got good at making LLCs and then having another person running it, where it's not, that's what Hunter Biden was doing when we looked into all those different LLCs he created. Remember when we figured out, hey, wait a minute, what about Skenetalese LLC? That's one of the Finger Lakes. Let's look at Owasco Lake. Let's look and see if there's any LLCs named Owasco, and there was, right? I don't know if this site broke it, but we were one of the early people that started looking up. I think I was one of the early people that started to look up the Great Lakes, and because he had the tattoo on his back and realized, hey, maybe there's some LLCs with those names, and there was Hudson West, there was Owasco PC, there was Skenetalese LLC, all connected back to Hunter Biden. So he could have assets in another LLC where it's never going to connect back to her name, but they're still going to be rich. Yoel Alter Interpol. Mexico indicts Lev Tahor figure after cross-border arrest and extradition. This is one of those Lev Tahor guys who is he's Jewish, right? He's from Israel. Yoel Alter. Mexico indicts Lev Tahor figure. Mexican authorities say Yoel Alter, described in multiple reports as a senior figure linked to Lev Tahor, This is coming out of Collegium of International Lawyers. Has been indicted in Mexico on allegations including human trafficking and child abuse exploitation after a case that moved across borders and was widely reported as involving Interpol channels. Mexico reporting in Mexico says Alta was detained in Chiapas, brought before a federal judge, and the court ordered pre-trial detention as prosecutors pursue charges linked to organized crime and trafficking allegations. Earlier reporting indicates Alta was arrested in Guatemala on a request tied to extradition to Mexico. So he fled to Guatemala. This guy's part of a cult. This goes back to the Children of God and all this crap and the John of God. Remember that? He had his own airstrip down there. These people are running human trafficking networks, and they got a freaking airstrip right outside of where he's, allegedly holding women, right, and making them into baby makers. Basically, as women just giving birth to babies all for years on end, right? Leader of ultra-Orthodox Lev Tohorsat extradited to Mexico. This was January the 1st, 2026. And he was, basically, it looks like he's going to be found guilty of that. He was hiding in Guatemala. Ghislaine Maxwell claims that this was the other big thing that came out, right, as the papers just started, the Epstein files started to come out more. Ghislaine Maxwell claims 25 Jeffrey Epstein accomplices reached secret settlements after abuse allegations. So 25 people within these who are accomplices in this thing have already reached a settlement, which means they're probably not going to ever get named. Right? That was probably part of their settlement, and they probably had to come up with a shit ton of cash, I'm assuming, right? But that's 25 different names. That's a lot of people. So secret settlements were made where these people are never going to be named. That could be the headline of this title, right? It's just 25 different accomplices reached secret settlements. Will those people's names ever be known? What if they're some of the biggest abusers and the biggest ones, right? What if they're the ones that did the worst crimes and they're going to get away with it now? Is that Ghislaine Maxwell's get out of jail free card right there, that she could blow that whole thing up? She's going to have to sign all kinds of NDAs if she's going to ever get a pardon. I think Trump's going to have to pardon her. Or the fake Trump is. And what happened? I thought they were going to remove the fake Trump, according to Benjamin Fulford. That didn't happen. Instead, all these other documents came out from Epstein, and it's starting to look really bad for a lot of different people, especially people like Bill Gates. Why? Because it turns out that allegedly Bill Gates got an STD from some of these Russian prostitutes or Russian women that got trafficked to Epstein or through Epstein. And he was, using those women basically like prostitutes. He was forcing them somehow to sleep with these powerful men. I don't know why they were doing it, though. That doesn't make any sense to me. Is he paying them large sums of money to do it, or is he just threatening them to do it? It seems like some of them were threatened, right? Like, in other words, if you say something, you could end up disappeared. And some of the allegations from one of these limo drivers that was listening to what Trump was talking about on a telephone call almost pulled over to the side of the road and kicked Trump out of his limo. That was I believe that was his testimony. So he was so disgusted with what he was hearing. Zohran Mamdani borrows from the Doge playbook with cost-cutting team as New York City scrambles to fill a $12 billion budget gap. You're going to have to cost-cut like you've never cost-cutted before, and then on top of that, cost-cut 5 times harder. It's not going to be able to work. You can't just cost-cut these agencies down where they already have almost nothing to work with in a budget. And a lot of these agencies within the government bureaucracy, what they do is they say, no, we need every cent that we make. We need more money. We always need more. We can't cut. If we tell them we can cut, they'll give us less money. We need all the money. That's why the bureaucracy just keeps on going. But we have so much deficit that we can't keep going on like this. Trump never did anything to deal with the deficit problem. He just kept spending like it was going out of style. He doesn't care. He's just keeping up appearances, but the market can't keep going like this. You're seeing the gold and silver markets be manipulated. He's not doing nothing to stop it. He's not looking into how much gold and silver the United States has in COMEX. He never looked into how much gold and silver was in Fort Knox. So why would he look into what's going on in the COMEX market here in New York City or in the COMEX markets in the United States? Trump says Putin agreed to a 1-week pause in Ukraine attacks after his personal phone request, but he's still shelling them. He's got these people with no heat, right? In the middle of the Ukraine winter, which is super cold. Seen some parts of Kamchatka, is it? Or that had some massive snowfall, man. Whew. Like 2 or 3 stories high, like drifts up by people's windows. Like you can't even get out the buildings. Got to dig out the entranceways. People sliding out of their 2nd and 3rd story apartment, like on sleds and stuff. It's crazy, dude. I think at some point, people are gonna realize we are actually in a mini ice age that's starting, and when people are gonna start, massive amounts of people are gonna start to move south. Or can we control the weather, right? If we can, well, why is it so cold? Why is half the country like under a snowstorm? Well, because they created it. They weather modded it. It's not like this in New York most winters. We had a cold snap that just never ended. It's like 2 weeks straight. They can't hold it forever. Eventually it's going to start warming up. Puxatony Chucks didn't see a shadow, so it's 6 more weeks of winter. Sorry, fellas and ladies. If you believe in Puxatony Phil and Chuck. I think Puxatony Chuck is actually dead, but they replaced him. Mayor, what's his name? The other mayor dropped Puxatony Chuck and killed him, unfortunately. I mean, Puxatony Phil, sorry. No, Chuck, yeah. Puxatony Chuck got murdered by the mayor, right? He dropped him. And he's like 6'7", that idiot. ASAP Rocky is eyeing a New York City mayoral run. Possible rap battle with Zoran Mamdani. So you got 2 morons trying to be, one is already the mayor by some illegal means, which we've never figured out how they did it. If only 1 million people voted for you and the city has 8 million people, how come 2 million people voted and nobody else did? Nobody's been able to come up with an explanation unless massive fraud went on. The Senate shutdown averts a shutdown with a budget deal, but I thought that somebody didn't. It's not set in stone yet. Trump signs an executive order declaring a national emergency to address threats from Cuba. Threatens tariffs on countries giving oil to Cuba. Calls Cuba a failing nation. Well, it is a failing nation. It's a failing nation because you've been putting a lot of pressure on it to fail for all these years. Because you don't like the government that's there in Castro. If you look how many times the CIA tried to assassinate Castro, I think it was over 50 to 100 times. And they could never do it. 3 former members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard who entered illegally during the Biden administration have been deported to protect national security. So what were these guys doing in here all this time? You just figured they were here now? If you have everybody's face in a database in the country, how can you not know who's not supposed to be here? You should. Then you saw ex-CNN host Don Lemon was arrested for the Minnesota church invasion. New York Post. Sorry, there's a siren going by, guys. Trump announces Kevin Warsh is the pick to be the next Federal Reserve Chair. That's what killed the markets. But, you can't have 0% interest rates. The banks shouldn't get loan the money for free, right? That's free money for the banks to loan. It's not, we shouldn't have that. Interest rates have to be at a certain percentage rate in the system that you're putting out there. We should really revalue the dollar, do a gold-backed dollar, and just say that we're going to renege on the national debt and let the corporation of the United States go bankrupt. That's what I thought we were supposed to be doing, but Trump's not doing that, not yet. Trump calls Alex Preti an agitator, possible insurrectionist after spitting, kicking video. Yeah, you saw that he was kicking the car, he was spitting. He didn't look to me to be just a regular protester. Plus, he shows up with a pistol with 2 clips. which means if he had a third, he has 3 clips, he's got 45 rounds, right? Or 16, he's got almost 50 rounds. But he never pulls the gun out for some reason. The gun goes off because it's on the ground, apparently, or somebody maybe stepped on it or something. Because it took 7 cops to get this guy to the ground for some reason. John Leguizamo is now under fire for demanding that fans choose between him and ICE. I wrote, this guy's a washed-up actor/comedian who isn't even in movies much anymore, so who's really, okay. We won't watch your old movies and your old comedy specials that weren't really that funny anyway. This guy's a jerk. Illegal aliens caught blasting guns on packed Texas highway, shooting at family in road rage attack. These guys had long rifles on a Texas highway bridge, shooting off the rounds at night. Who knows who they could have killed. And I think a couple of them got busted. Federal judge drops Minnesota summons for ICE chief, criticizes agency. 3 days ago, silver went down $15 to 101. That was the start of the purge, right? Gold was down $289 3 days ago. That's when they started to do the shorting, whatever they were doing, to make it drastically go down. Because when I woke up and saw, I said, what? Silver's down what? I've never seen that before. I mean, I'd seen it up 7, the other day, one day. Senate vote on budget deal stalls as government shutdown looms. So here's something I was talking about, a tabletop exercise that happened June 22nd and 23rd of 2001. It was called Tabletop Exercise Dark Winter. And this happened not too long before 9/11, of course, right? The Dark Winter exercise held at Andrews Air Force Base, Washington, D.C., June 22nd and 23rd of 2001, portrayed a fictional scenario depicting a covert smallpox attack on U.S. citizens. The scenario is set in 3 successive National Security Council meetings, segments 1, 2, and 3, that take place over a period of 2 weeks. Former senior government officials played the roles of NSC members responding to the evolving epidemic. Excuse me. Representatives from the media were among the observers of these mock NSC meetings and played journalists during the scenario's press conferences. So this was a dark winter exercise, right? That sounds sort of like what maybe happened with the COVID thing, right? Sort of similar-ish. That was from the Center for Health Security.org. And it happened 6 months before 9/11. Interesting. The Dark Winter exercise was the collaborative effort of 4 organizations. John Hammer of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, initiated and conceived of an exercise wherein senior former officials would respond to a bioterrorist-induced national security crisis. Tara O'Toole and Tom Inglesby of the John Hopkins Center for Civilian Biodefense Studies, and Randy Larson and Mark Demir of Analytic Services, Inc., Answer, were the principal designers, authors, and controllers of Dark Winter. So you can look up Dark Winter Tabletop Exercise 2001. Why were they doing that? Clinton contempt vote is set for next Wednesday, so that's 2 days from now. That was on Friday. I posted that Newsmax. The Clintons are going to be held in contempt. The question is, are they going to have to go to jail? Because otherwise, what good is contempt if I can just say, hey, I'm not going to come later? What are you going to do about it? I'm former president. You're going to put me in jail? You should. It doesn't matter. Anybody that's in contempt of the court usually goes to jail. And the judge can make the contempt last for a long time if you don't eventually come around. Certain journalists have been put in jail for long periods of time who wouldn't share sources in certain cases. Will the Clintons be held in contempt? Ilhan Omar's winery just disappeared. It's gone from the internet and the archives. Why don't these people just go away? They're never held to account. They never get in trouble. She never gets censored or censured for doing what she's done in the past. It's like these people got carte blanche. They can do whatever they want. Cuba's down to 15 to 20 days left of oil amid the U.S. blockade. Newsmax. Then you saw they start to use the weapons that they have, right? Different actors. They have now the ice pins that these guys are wearing, anti-ice pins at the Grammys, right? You saw, what did you see? Justin Bieber was doing a song in his underwear. It's like, what is going on with these people? They're like completely losing their shit. Actresses and these people are showing up half naked with like see-through dresses where you can see their underwear and their breasts are just hanging out. It's like, what is wrong with these people? Their egos have gone completely... Their ego death is so incredibly difficult that they can't do it. Ego death is incredibly hard. When you have to let your ego die. That's part of your ascension, right? If you want to go to the next density, you've got to let your ego die. And your karma has to get laid down. It doesn't mean you have no ego. It's just you can't let your ego rule you anymore, like these stars do. Where it's, look at me all the time. I got to be on... I'm an influencer, right? I got to be online all the time doing a show or this or that. I'm getting sick of it even. You don't ever see me on the show, but I'm sick of doing the show. I want to get to the end of the story where we're free and we are sent to the next level and we get the med beds and everyone can get healthy again and everyone could be abundant again and have all the money you're going to need and we won't have to work anymore and we could... Imagine what the world would be like if everybody can do whatever they want, and hopefully people will still do positive things like being masseuses and creating things and being artists and just whatever, right? But we're going to still need people to do certain things that people need help with and need like doctors, or, well, we won't need doctors, right? You won't need a masseuse, really. You won't ever be at disease anymore. Yeah, you could maybe get a massage if you like the way it feels, or maybe a robot will do it, or whatever, right? They're using actress Molly Ringwald now. She threatens retaliation against ICE supporters if leftists reclaim power. Yeah, you know, if you didn't go along with everything that Trump did, or if you did go along with Trump and you supported him, well, be careful. Because if we get back in power, but you're never going to get back in power. They're using all their weapons to fight, I said, if they're using Molly Ringwald. Agitators swarm California restaurant after mistaking TSA officers for ICE agents. This is going to end up getting somebody killed, is my guess. They'll kill one of these guys, or one of these guys will shoot one of them because they're coming at them. Or a couple of people will get shot because they're rushing at one of these. That's what's going to happen eventually. Because if I got a gun on me, if I'm ICE and I'm off duty and you start trying to attack my family, I will shoot you. I would if they start rushing me in a restaurant and it got violent, yeah. You can't have the mob rule, right? That's what's going on in Minnesota. There's the mob rules, right? Gangs of people are roaming all over the city looking for ICE agents and cars and taking down license plates and taking photos of people. Panama court acts as Chinese-linked control at canal in victory for Trump. So they did somehow force China out of the Panama Canal. China, we should cut off all dealings with China until they come out and admit what they've done the past 10 years. They're buying land near our military bases. You're pushing fentanyl into our country. You're destabilizing our government. They've been doing it to each other for a long time. China plays the long game. Agitators swarm California restaurant again. Yeah, enough of this crap. Enough of this mob rule. These mayors should be held to account and start enforcing the law in their cities. Mayor Katie Wilson orders Seattle police to investigate, verify, and document ICE activity. So now you have the cops following ICE. Not assisting them. Right? Following them. Wilson's announcement acknowledges that there is no current evidence of an increase in ICE or CBT activity in Seattle. I wrote, you're using the local police to investigate a federal agency, quote unquote. That's highly unusual. It is. Usually if a federal agency comes in, you're supposed to help them, period. Like if the FBI comes into a local police case, you don't screw with those people. They will fuck your world up. Right? No, you help and assist the FBI with anything they need, and then you hope they leave quick if you're a local police officer dealing with a situation with the FBI in your jurisdiction. Of course you don't want them there, but you want to get this thing done quick and get them out. You don't want to not help them, because then they're going to think you're part of it. GOP challenger Michael Henry drops New York Attorney General bid to unseat Letitia James. So who's going to go run against this woman? It seems like she's going to be in power indefinitely. She has no challenger as of now. Tom Holman warns justice is coming for the signal groups that are organizing attacks on ICE. About the organization and the funding of the attacks on ICE, they'll be held accountable. You should have done this a long time ago. I don't know what's going on here. Deputy AG Todd Blanche says DOJ is releasing 3.5 million Epstein files. They just came out. Gold down over $600 on a couple days ago, right? It was increasing the pressure. They had to get gold back down. It was running, and it was running crazy. Going up $150, $200 a day on average. Gold and silver plunge after news Trump will nominate Kevin Warsh. But was it all about that, or did they just use that as the thing to make it so that it would go down? And then they put the pressure on with the paper contracts again. But what's also happening is these guys got squeezed, right? A lot of these traders are getting destroyed because the margin calls that got generated. New York City cops and sanitation workers ordered to stop taking down homeless encampments weeks before 10 are found dead. Now it's up to 16 dead. I think we're going to, at the tail end, I mean, it's 31 right now. That's a big difference than 15. Right? We were like, the high yesterday was like 17, 20. So we're sort of getting up above 31, but we got to get to like 35, 40 for the real snow to start anywhere really melting. And most of this snow now is not even snow, it's just solid ice all over the place now, with a lot of piss stains all over it. That's what New York looks like. So it's a dog piss filled sidewalks with frozen dog urine and garbage. Epstein claimed Bill Gates caught an STD from a sex with Russian girls in the latest files released by DOJ. Not only that, but then he's asking Epstein in an email that Epstein releases, or was released, asking if Epstein can get antibiotics so he could sneak it into his husband or his wife's, whatever that is that he's married to, into her beverage so she can take the antibiotics without knowing he's giving them to her. Because he's got STDs that he probably gave to his husband or his wife. I'm sure she's thrilled to hear that. Elon Musk's scheduled visit to Epstein's pedo island in January of 2014, emails released by DOJ reveal. For the record, I don't believe he ever went there. I'm sure somebody probably told him, don't go. If you do, you will be, they will have compromat on you. But remember, there was also the other part of that was that there was some cannibalistic things possibly going on there. If the grainy photos that we saw in the Q dumps were real. Remember, we saw the video cameras, and one of those cameras looked like a room where people were sitting like naked, like eating something, right? Allegedly. Were some of these celebrity chefs used as chefs that were cooking human meat? That's another allegation, because we saw the Cannibal Cafe that tried to open in New York and LA, but there was so much backlash that they had to shut that down, right? And the person that opened the one in LA was, I think, related to the Zuckerbergs in some way, like a niece of Zuckerberg's wife or something. Somebody connected to Zuckerberg's wife was trying to open that restaurant, if you remember, the Cannibal Cafe, where they were going to serve human meat. Where it's sourced from, I don't know, and I don't want to know. The fact that they were that close to allowing that to open shows you how far we had fallen as a society. Of course, those never were allowed to open, or if they did, they opened in secret for some time, but it was never open to the public. Not here. So did Musk ever go to Epstein's island? I don't know, but Trump was on Epstein's plane a bunch of different times. Epstein sent DNA test kits to Noam Chomsky and Woody Allen, newly released DOJ files show. Why would you do that? He's trying to get all these like really smart guys' DNA, right? Is what he's trying to do. He's trying to create some kind of Ubermensch, right? The Superman. That's what they're trying to do again. They're getting all the smartest people together, all these like Harvard, uh, you know, Harvard educated, Yale educated guys who are in secret societies or controlled, right? $3.4 trillion gone. Why they just crashed gold and silver in 30 minutes? That was another video that guy had put out. Gold went down $500 within a half hour. Think about that for a second. Is that normal market movement? No. Not in an asset that had been blowing up hundreds of dollars a day on the regular. An asset that everybody wants that is in limited amounts, right? There's also off-ledger gold. Remember, we talked about that. There's more off-ledger gold than there is on-ledger gold. There's gold that's still in the ground that nobody's found yet, right? They just found a bunch of like Viking gold. Some guy found like with his metal detector. China's got some off-ledger gold, I'm sure. Investigators can't find tape showing Fulton County's 2020 ballot count started at 0, board says. Well, that's a problem, because it's supposed to start at 0. Remember, some of the Dominion machines can print a test deck. Remember that? What does that mean? It could print a whole deck out of fake election results just to test itself, right? Well, what if it's doing that and they're saying it's the real result? And they make a test deck that's 97 out of 100 for Biden in some counties, right? That's why these women were like, I saw these ballots, remember, in Fulton County, and they look perfect, she said. All the ovals were perfect, which is never the case. If you have human beings filling out an oval, you know you never do it perfect, right? You could try. You'll get most of it perfect, but there might be a little ink outside. You know, normally if you look at those, you could see which one. These were perfectly ovals, all for Biden, right? And then she said when she looked down the rest of the ballots, what did she see? That every single thing was in the Democrat, every single time. All the same were checked, which there's no way, there's no statistical way that could happen. There would be some differences in the ballots, right? They wouldn't all be like that. Peaceful ICE arrest of 650 illegal aliens in West Virginia proves Dems are manufacturing the chaos in Minnesota. Yeah, it doesn't. You're just bringing in these people from out of state to be agitators, to make it look crazy, right? To attack the cops, to scream, to attack civilians and who they think are ICE. Don Lemon charged with 2 felonies and unsealed indictment. Those are conspiracy against right of religious freedom at place of worship and injure, intimidate, and interfere with exercise of right of religious freedom at a place of worship. Yeah. Not only that, you set this up on purpose. This wasn't a natural thing. You didn't happen to be walking by the church. Oh, these guys are walking in and protesting. Let me go capture this. I just happen to be a reporter on the scene. No. You set this up. This is a fake event that you set up. It's not normal, right? It's a group of people that want to go into a church and make people get all angry and upset for no reason. That's the only reason that it was done, to get people upset and angry. And you're lucky you didn't get the crap beat out of you. You went in the wrong church, that might have happened, right? Try doing that in certain African American churches in the South. See how fast your ass gets your ass kicked. Right? Probably. That's why you picked a majority white church to do it in, right? Where people are going to be more docile. This guy's a real prick, though, right? He never was a real journalist. He's a fake journalist all the way. He's just the guy that says the thing that gets you pissed off. Jeffrey Epstein scouted women for the Giants owner Steve Tisch, new emails released by DOJ claim. Working girl? Yeah, I mean, what is this guy, like a pimp, basically? He's just running around hooking up women with these guys? I mean, what would you think the guy is if he's talking about that? Who are you? Why are you emailing me talking about women for? And hooking me up with underage women? Why would I want to have this guy around? Most people who knew better, when they met Epstein, if they did, knew him for what he was right away. It didn't take many to see what he was. So why is Donald Trump so in with this guy? for so many years. Why is he palling around with Ghislaine Maxwell? Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick visited Epstein's pedo island, emails released by the DOJ reveal. So here's another person who's in Trump's orbit who was at Epstein's island. Right, so was Dershowitz, so was, now we know Elon Musk was going to go. We know Woody Allen was there. Other stars are probably gone. Woody Allen to me looks like he's also a cannibal. Zoran Mamdani's mom mentioned in Epstein Files email about film she directed. DOJ's newly released documents show. So his mother's in the files. Trump is a lot more in the files than has been in the past that we've realized. Melania's intimate love note to Ghislaine Maxwell buried inside the explosive Epstein files. Yeah, she's talking with them too. That's the thing. They know them. He's partying with them for years. He's allowing them in Mar-a-Lago for years. Going to clubs with Ghislaine, not for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And what? He has no affiliation with these fucking people? He doesn't know Epstein? Of course he does. He intimately knows him. He's having dinners at his house. His cook, his housekeeper / cook is cooking for him and Trump in private dinners. Melania's intimate love note to Maxwell. Jeffrey Epstein raped and attacked girls several times a day as part of sickening routine revealed in newly released documents. Yeah, he was having these massages sometimes 3 times a day. The guy's saying he's a tier 1 pedophile, right? He's admitting to it. He's a tier 1 sex offender. New York City socialist mayor dragged into Epstein's scandalous files claim his mother spent evenings at Ghislaine Maxwell's house. So here you go. Your mother's down with these people too. Your mother was with Epstein at his home. What, does he have any compromise on Mamdani and his mom? Maybe. Bill Gates issues a furious response to Epstein files, claim he slept with Russian girls and caught an STD, and suggests the late pedophile was desperate to be his friend. Well, you seem desperate to be friends with him. Why'd you keep hanging out with him, right? If you wanted to get an escort, you didn't need this guy to do it. Most billionaires can get anything they want. He could fly in 10 girls from Thailand if he wanted, right? And have his own harem, and nobody would have noticed or cared. Could have set him up in a beach house somewhere. If you got $1 billion, you could do whatever you want to do. You could have 10 maids and have sex with all of them or whatever, right? I mean, why does he need to fuck around with Bill Gates is my point. I mean, why does Gates need to fuck around with Epstein at all? Because they're doing other things. He has plans with these people. They're making some kind of group, right, where they think that their sperm is going to be used to inseminate large amounts of people. Sort of like the Gattaca. Maybe that's the Gattaca thing? I don't know what these people were doing. Some boys from Brazil type shit. Speaker Johnson admits there will be a short government shutdown as Congress works to reconcile the budget deal. So there will be a shutdown, according to Speaker Johnson. Daily Mail. Argentina's privatized natural gas imports and ends the government's role. That's probably a good idea, because your government's corrupt as fuck. And has been since before Eva Peron, who allowed the Nazis to come in and gave them shelter for $300 million in gold. Mamdani still will only force homeless New Yorkers off the streets as a last resort. Well, the last resort is it's 5 degrees. Yeah, you might want to do that. You're probably not going to make it through the night. And most of these cross streets have the breezes blowing, boy. I'll tell you, when that wind hits you when it's 15, it goes down to 5 degrees real quick, and you can't make it. Even in the tent, you're not going to make it with a sleeping bag. You may make it, but not for long. It's too cold. It's just too cold, man. Can't make it. And most homeless people don't have a sleeping bag that's weighted down to 0 degrees. And if it's below zero, that still might not be warm enough. You're not talking about a hot tent, right, with a wood-burning stove in it. No, this is, most people don't even have a tent. They're making some structure out of cardboard boxes with some newspaper in it and stuff for insulation, which isn't much. Not when it's blowing across town with a 10, 15, 20 mile an hour breeze and it's 10 degrees out at night. He should force people off the street because it's an emergency. He has some warming buses out in different boroughs, but they're few and far between. Get a few homeless guys on one of those warming buses, it's going to start stinking real quick, and nobody's going to want to go in it. Is it better than staying outside and freezing to death? Yeah, but you can also go into the, Grand Central Station. You can go into different places, into the subway. New York City judge with ties to the Dem Party boss accused of fraud resigns, alarming allegations. So there's all kind of fraud going on. The amount of money laundering alone that's been going on the past years is just unbelievable. Don Lemon released with no bail as defense attorney strokes his ego. One of the most well-known figures in the world. No bail. No problem. Stop letting lefty DAs shield illegal immigrant criminals from ICE. Well, that's what's going on in New York. They just re-elected the DA who was allowing all these people out of jail, some of whom without bail, some of whom attacked other people and killed them. Explosions rocked Iran with at least 4 dead after Donald Trump threatened to attack regime over deaths of protesters. They don't know where those attacks came from. Richard Branson told Jeffrey Epstein to bring his harem the next time they met, as he gave pedophile PR advice after conviction for procuring minor for prostitution. So it looks like Richard Branson was using maybe Epstein to procure women also. Because it's not just procuring a woman. A woman is an adult, right? These people wanted to procure underage women, is what these people wanted. New York Giants co-owner Steve Tisch breaks his silence after DOJ emails revealed terrible Jeffrey Epstein found young women for him. What's wrong with these people, right? It just doesn't make any sense. It's almost like, hey, you're forced into making compromise on yourself and putting yourself in a bad position. Why would a guy with all this money, who could get almost any adult woman he wanted, probably, right? He could have a mistress or whatever. If you got billions of dollars, you can usually, guys like that have maybe multiple mistresses. Hasn't been unheard of for a billionaire to have a mistress or two, right? No. When you get up into those types of money, you can do almost anything you want and get away with it, pretty much. Not anything, but most things. You can make your world any way you want it when you have that kind of money. Epstein's will was revealed. The pedophile wanted to leave his girlfriend $50 million and a diamond ring and the pedophile island. That's not Ghislaine. That's another woman. I wrote, the pilot got $10 million along with the brother. Why did he pay the pilot so well? For his silence, I wrote? Yeah, I'm assuming so. He's the guy that knew everything. He knew all the people who were flying on the plane. Not just the young women who were flying on it, but the stars that flew there. He knew everything. That's why that guy got $10 million. He probably got $10 million and a multiple NDAs. That probably don't expire until his fucking death or Epstein's death. Spain just offered amnesty to 500,000 illegal aliens. It bucks the EU and the global trend and sparks backlash. What are they doing? You just allowed 500,000 people at citizenship in a country that's not that big. And Spain's not small, but that's a lot of people to absorb all at once, I'm saying. And there's people making videos of parts of England now, and it looks unrecognizable. You could be in cities in Africa, it looks like more. There's so many people of darker color and skin now that they've moved into these places that they don't even resemble England anymore. They fundamentally changed the face of England. Like I said, it's almost too late. You'd have to, you'd have to deport millions of people that have been let in over the past 5 years, and they're not. I don't see that happening, at least not yet. Federal judge blocks effort to end Trump administration's ICE surge in Minnesota. Plaintiffs asked the court to extend existing precedent to a new context where its application is less direct, namely to an unprecedented deployment of armed federal immigration officers to aggressively enforce immigration statutes. U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez wrote in the decision. So they can't end ICE in Minnesota. They're allowed to work there. They're allowed to go into any state they want. They can't say they can't work there because that would be making it legal for illegal aliens to come in. You're saying it's that they can't do their job, right? A higher court would probably overturn that on appeal. They know that. Jay-Z and Harvey Weinstein appear in the DOJ's latest Epstein files. So, yeah. I heard all kinds of stuff about Jay-Z, but we haven't heard any concrete evidence about him yet. Like what Diddy did. I was watching some of the Diddy special. He really was out of control. Ayatollah reemerges from secret bunker to celebrate Iranian revolutionary anniversary while deadly explosions wall up Iran. So this guy's hiding in a bunker underground like Saddam was. Gaza doctor who slammed Israel in New York Times op-eds is a Hamas colonel seen in military uniform. This guy's trying to pretend he's just a doctor. He's not a doctor. You're a freaking terrorist. How can you be both? Right? He's obviously breaking his Hippocratic oath by hurting other people, right? Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous star Robin Leach appears in the Epstein files dump. Yeah, Robin Leach a bunch of times is mentioned. I'm Robin Leach. Right, remember? Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. You remember that show. What was that all about? It was all about wealth, right? It was all about ego. It was all about money, right? Abundance. Look at what I have. Look at all the money I have. Look at the cars I have, the planes, the boats, the islands. Look at the clothes I got, the woman I have. Look at me, right? Ego. Trump claims Minnesota fraud exceeds $19 billion, blames Biden, singles out Omar and Waltz. Yeah, these people are in deep trouble. Every state has fraud of some kind, I'm assuming. Pretty much almost every state, in varying levels, with probably New York, California being the top two, and Chicago a close third, or Illinois a close third. New York and Cali are easy 1 and 2. Mamdani to sign bill barring ICE from operating out of Rikers Island or any New York City correctional facility. See, that's a problem because then you're releasing these guys from some of them who are criminals back into society. I mean, just the other day, ICE had to arrest a guy who the court released out of the back of the courthouse when ICE was saying, hold this guy for us. We want you to detain him. We have a detain order on this guy. We're going to deport him. And they didn't do it. They let him out the back of the courthouse, but ICE happened to be waiting because they knew that they were going to probably do that. So that's not cooperating at all with ICE. That's in fact working against ICE. Any people that do this, these mayors and these people should be removed. You're not allowed to not work with a government agency. Like if the FBI comes into New York and is looking into a case, you can't tell the police officers not to assist them and to impede their investigation. You can be arrested for that, for impeding a federal officer on his investigation. Right? ICE agents chase down illegal alien sex predator after judge allows him to stroll out of the courthouse. It's right here. Why are you letting illegal aliens who are sex predators just walk out of the courthouse for when they're guilty and there's a retain order on them? An alleged crack-smoking sexual predator illegal alien wanted by ICE was allowed to flee through a back door of a Manhattan courthouse. Who did that? That judge should be immediately removed from the bench and never allowed to serve again. Gerardo Miguel Mora, 45, was arrested Thursday for shoplifting and possession of stolen property after allegedly snatching $130 in items from an H&M display case in Midtown that day. Mora, whose country of origin was not disclosed, was collared on the Upper West Side January 7th for possession of alleged crack cocaine. According to a criminal complaint, the case is pending in court. Yeah, these guys have multiple instances, a lot of shoplifting, other crimes. This guy looks like a real winner, though, right? Brett Ratner, director of Melania, embraces woman on couch next to Jeffrey Epstein and DOJ photo dump. Yeah, Ratner knew Epstein. He knew a lot of people. Some people are now saying he knew Putin. He was a compromat operation being run by Putin. I don't think so. Although he did have a bunch of different passports. I think it's more like he was Mossad. But could be that he was working for the KGB or multiple different people, right? Who knows? Hey, if I got compromat on somebody, there's multiple countries might pay a lot of money to have that. If I got compromat on certain senators, there's some people would pay a lot of money for that, not just in the United States. Mamdani warned to install security bollards at vulnerable houses of worship 1 month before driver rammed into the Brooklyn synagogue. Shanghai silver is 40% higher. The gap that changes everything. At one point, it was 40% higher. It was trading almost at $140 an ounce in Shanghai, and it was trading under around 199 or 90 something in the United States. Which is, how is that possible? Should be at the same price or close to it. How can you have a 40%, that's almost 50% difference in the price? Which means that where's all the gold and the silver over here? It doesn't seem like there is any. ICE agents chase down illegal alien sex predator after judge allows him to stroll out of the courthouse. Double confirmation. Justice Department needs to be removed in New York City. Whoever the courts that are doing this, they need to remove these judges immediately. Stanley Richards named to lead Department of Corrections, New York City's first ex-con commissioner. So he put an ex-convict, a convict in running the Department of Corrections, which, that doesn't make any sense, does it? No. Why would you do that, I wrote. Is he the most qualified person? Has he ever run a prison system or a prison before? No, he's been in a prison. Doesn't mean you know how to run one. You might know how to run one criminally if you if you've been in prison, right? And you're part of a gang. You might know how to run criminal operations in a prison. Doesn't mean you know how to run a prison the right way. Former U.S. Ambassador Peter Mandelson pictured in the Epstein files standing in his underpants in pedophile financier's home. That doesn't look too good. The former U.S. ambassador's hanging out with Epstein in his underwear. This guy's got access to pretty much everybody. That's how he gets some guy's mansion for, $5. Right? It seems like everything's given to this guy. He's given a job in Bear Stearns or one of these companies when he has no experience. What is it that this guy's really good at? Just getting some pussy for these guys? Excuse my French. I mean, because that's what a pimp is used for. This guy's more than a pimp, though, right? Way more than a pimp. He's got access to all kinds of different people. He can get you access, women, drugs, probably, other stuff, compromise on other people, possibly. Epstein's sex empire was a KGB honey trap. Pedophile financier had multiple talks with Putin after conviction, with Russian girls flown in to harvest compromise on world-famous figures. That could be why he's using some of these Russian and Ukrainian girls. Because if I do have compromise, maybe she can put it inside her body on the chip or whatever on a drive, and you'll never know. And we'll smuggle it back over to Russia like that. That way it's not moving through the pipes, right? Get these guys all drugged up on some roofies and whatever, and get the compromat on them, right? Get the video of it. Moment hammer-wielding thugs break into a family-run jeweler's. I mean, this is a broad daylight heist. The guy's got a sledgehammer, and he's just going to town on the, on the glass, which is bulletproof. But again, you can get through it eventually with a sledgehammer. While brave staff desperately save what they can. That's the other thing I've been noticing. Does Trump ever release any of the abundance for us? No, he won't even give you your Doge check, which would have helped a lot of people. I mean, 5,000 for somebody that's living in their car right now is a huge deal. Is it enough to maybe get you off the street? Maybe. Yeah. It's enough maybe for a small apartment, first and last month's rent. Yeah, maybe. And then maybe I can get a job real quick, right? Hopefully. Maybe I got 2 months' rent. That's it. It's a chance, though, right? It's something. As opposed to I'm sitting in my car with nothing, eating fucking, SpaghettiOs and meatballs in the can, Chef Boyardee or whatever, right? Cold. Thinking, how am I going to get the hell out of my situation? It's a little bit better than that, no? Any roof is better than no roof. Some roof is better than no roof, right? As long as the heat's working and it's cold in winter, when it's cold in winter like this. Billionaire Reid Hoffman, who bankrolled the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit against Trump, is featured extensively in the new Epstein files, visiting Zorro Ranch and the pedophile island. So Hoffman's in trouble, right? He's all over the place. And what was going on in the Zorro Ranch, where we know there was underground facilities underneath that. What was really going on there? Right? And does that jack into the underground dump system within New Mexico? Possibly. My feeling is yeah, because it's such a large property. I wrote, on Friday when the COMEX silver market closed, the price of silver in the United States was around $86 an ounce. The price of silver at that moment in Shanghai, China, was somewhere around $132 an ounce. That's an almost 40% price difference, which is what the video was talking about. How is that possible, I wrote. It's not. It shouldn't be. It is, because you're seeing it, which means that some fuckery is afoot, right? Cheating is afoot. Arbitrage is afoot. And it's been afoot for a very, very, very long time. It's how the banks have been enriching themselves, and others who know what the banks are doing have been enriching themselves. These contracts allow a small amount of an investment like $10,000 where you can control $100,000 in contracts, which shouldn't be allowed. It's the same thing with futures in my view. You can buy futures on cotton, on orange juice futures, cattle futures, cotton, peaches, I think, all kinds of things you can buy. You can gamble on this shit, and you shouldn't be allowed to, especially when people don't have control of the weather, because that means they can manipulate the crop yields. They can manipulate these markets, and they have been manipulating not just silver and gold, but other markets for a very, very, very long time. Trump threatens to sue Michael Wolff and Epstein estate and insists fresh document dump absolves him. It doesn't seem like it absolves you. A woman is accusing you of being a witness of the murder of her child. You haven't even answered that allegation. DOJ open to charging more of Jeffrey Epstein associates after the latest document dump. Arsenic's been found in dozens of popular candies, sparking fear among patients, parents, and consumers. Mayor Mamdani's Gracie Mansion is noticeably trash-free. His Upper East Side neighbors drown in 8-foot piles of garbage. So why aren't you, so what? There's some snow. You can still get the garbage. They're going to have to hike over the ice to get it, but they can get it. There's a way to do it. Hakeem Jeffries calls to unmask ICE agents as Antifa releases hit list of federal officers. Jeffries posted a video on X on Saturday accusing Republicans of using taxpayer dollars to kill American citizens. You're not supposed to show up to a protest with a loaded firearm and spit in the face of these officers and harass them and get up in their face and attack their vehicle. If you want to peacefully protest, you stay behind the barbed wire or whatever the hell they put out there, the fencing or whatever it is that they put out there. You don't impede the federal officer. If you get in the way of a federal officer doing their job, they can defend themselves and move you out of the way. If you try to run them over with your car, you will be shot. You could be fired upon. Over 34,000 Minnesotans volunteer as ICE watchers since Renee Good shooting. Borders are Tom Homan said last week that justice is coming. Damaging Epstein files of calendar girls claim against Trump vanish mysteriously, but screenshots go viral. What are these calendar girls meetings that allegedly went on? right? And then all of a sudden it vanished out of there. And a lot of this, there was a massage list of masseuses that Epstein had that was all redacted. This is off of Yahoo News Blast. Damaging Epstein files of calendar girls claim against Trump vanished mysteriously. Recently released documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein have surfaced allegations involving President Trump. The billionaire politician has previously denied having any knowledge of the convicted sex offender's illegal activities while branding the push for the file release as a hoax. However, the newly disclosed records are now being interpreted by some as raising fresh questions about Donald Trump's past relationship with Epstein. Midas Touch on X released this tweet. The new Epstein Files production features numerous allegations made against Trump and others. Donald Trump, the president, had parties at Mar-a-Lago called Calendar Girls. Jeffrey Epstein, Elon Musk, Jeffrey Epstein would bring the children in and Trump would auction them off. He measured the children's vulva and vaginas by entering a finger and rated the children on tightness. The guests were elder men and included Elon Musk, Don Jr. Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump were there. Attorney Alan Dershowitz was also there with attorney Bob Shapiro. We were taken in rooms, forced to give oral sex to Donald J. Trump, forced to allow them to penetrate us. I was 13 years old when Donald Trump raped me. Ghislaine Maxwell was also present. That's alleged documents that exist, although I don't know what the document number is. And it would be nice if we could find the link to that in the Justice Department file so that we could have confirmation that it's definitely. But it appears that, here's the complaint summary. Blank reported an unidentified female friend who was forced to perform oral sex on President Trump approximately 35 years ago in New Jersey. The friend told Alexis that she was approximately 13 to 14 years old when this occurred, and the friend allegedly bit President Trump while performing oral sex. The friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting President Trump. The friend said she was also abused by Epstein. Redacted reported she has a friend, Redacted, who was a personal assistant to Epstein in Florida from 1986 until 1991 and 1992. This friend shares names of some of the guests at Epstein's parties to include Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. At age 16, while modeling, Caller attended 8 parties at Epstein's New York residence. On one occasion, Caller reported she was sexually assaulted by Epstein. On another occasion, 2 twin brothers, Alan and Orrin, lured Caller and her friend upstairs, but they escaped back downstairs. These are the same guys I think that just got that the other woman said raped him and she ended up dead, right? I think. Alan and Orrin lured her and her friend upstairs, but they escaped back downstairs. Caller stated Orrin raped her best friend and a third brother, Tal, raped a 14-year-old girl named Redacted. Caller named other individuals involved in big orgy parties with her, other young girls, and older Victoria's Secret models, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. So this person is alleging that Donald Trump was there for orgies, that Donald Trump had received oral sex from a 13 or 14-year-old girl. And there's other allegations that Trump had witnessed an infanticide, the death of an infant in 1984 on a yacht or a boat in Lake Michigan. So that's 3 different allegations, plus the other rape allegations that allegedly were settled out of, I think, in the past. Online complainant reported she was a victim and witness to a sex trafficking ring at the Trump golf course in Ranchos Palos Verdes, California, between 1995 and 1996. Complainant reported Ghislaine Maxwell as the madam and broker for sex parties, clients of whom included Epstein, Robin Leach, and Donald Trump. Complainant reported participating in orgies, and that some girls went missing, rumored to have been murdered and buried at the facility. Complainant reported being threatened by Trump's then head of security that if she ever talked of what went on there or who she saw, he would end up as fertilizer for the back nine holes like the other cunts. Well, that would be someplace you could bury a body and nobody would probably ever find it, right? If you hide them in the right spot. Are they going to have to go over some of the back nine holes of some of these golf courses to see if there's any bodies now? Is that going to happen? I don't think so. Complainant claims to have video of high-profile sex parties, dealings with cartels, and having witnessed Robin Leach strangle a young girl to death at a party. So there's Leach. Complainant reported his ex-girlfriend, redacted, were victims of Epstein's and one was murdered while working as a limousine driver. Complainant recalled picking up Donald Trump in 1995. Here's the one that I was telling you about. To take him to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. During that ride, complainant recalled some of the things Trump spoke about on his cell phone were very concerning and described being a few seconds from pulling the limo over on the median and within a few seconds of pulling him out of the car and hurting him due to some of the things he was saying. Complainant noted Trump repeatedly stated the name Jeffrey while on the phone. One of complainant's ex-girlfriends, redacted, told complainant Trump raped her, as did Epstein. Caller is talking about crimes committed against her. She claims to be a prisoner. She references Lisa Marie Presley, the British royal family, President Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein. Complainant reported that her neighbor sought modeling gigs at the Trump Modeling Agency in New York City between the years 1998 to 2000. Remember, we saw that Trump had the modeling agency. This was really like an escort service. It was Trump Escorts. Complainant reported neighbor allegedly went on cruises set up by a recruiter or head of the agency and once showed complainant a photo of the recruiter whom complainant recalled looking like Epstein. Complainant reported neighbor was allegedly raped several times during this time period. Caller provided info to reference prior civil case from 13 years ago that involved Trump and mentioned Jeffrey Epstein with a minor. Complainant followed up after a call with NYPD officer regarding her previous tip, reporting that she was forced to perform sex acts when she was 13 and pregnant in 1984. Right, we covered that. This is the allegation of infanticide, right? Complainant also reported there were high-profile individuals involved in her sex trafficking and the murder and disposal of her newborn daughter. Caller was taken by boat to Epstein Island. Caller said it was complicated and involved Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Caller became a school counselor and had a meeting with the school principal, Linda Kitts, and a police officer, where the caller was informed there were pictures of herself with Epstein. Caller reported the school was mad at her for not being a Trump person and that the school wanted her to testify and say things against Andrew Cuomo. The FBI and Donald Trump were on the phone during the meeting. Caller believes the FBI has baby pictures of her with Epstein. Caller reported that in 1987 a friend, Victim 1, was out drinking and ended up at Trump Plaza. Victim 1 saw Donald Trump and wanted to meet him. An unknown man approached her and offered to introduce her to Trump. The unknown man gave Victim 1 a drink, and Victim 1 woke up naked and sore with $300 on the bed. Victim 1 didn't remember how she got to the room. So that's like the whole Cosby thing with the roofies, right? She remembered seeing a flash of Trump's face. Victim 1 called the caller and told her she thought she had been raped. Victim 1 did not go to a hospital to have a rape kit performed because she didn't think anyone would believe her, especially because she was drunk. Victim 1's husband's business had problems with suppliers, and Victim 1 believed Trump was behind it. Victim 1 also started dating a lawyer, identifier is unknown, who was married. Victim 1 had a fight with her lawyer boyfriend and went to a bar. Victim 1 left a bar with a man who no one in the bar recognized but who seemed familiar with Victim 1. Victim 1 was never seen again. A few years ago, remains were discovered that matched the description of what Victim 1 was wearing when she went missing. DNA tests at the time were inconclusive. So, for those people saying that Trump's not mentioned at all, you are overlooking a massive amount of growing documentation that says he is mentioned. And he's mentioned multiple different times. Having been an associate of Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate of Epstein, having eaten with Epstein, having hung out with Epstein, having flew on Epstein's plane multiple times back to New York. The new Epstein Files production features numerous allegations made against Donald Trump and others. Here's the Midas touch that we just looked at. You can check that out. Woman told FBI Trump abused her at 13, Epstein Files reveal. Daily Beast. So Daily Beast is more like liberal media, right? But they're reporting on it, and I don't see anyone else doing it. Right? There's multiple different allegations now against Trump that he either abused underage women, received oral sex from underage women, allegedly. An allegation of rape against President Trump involving a 13-year-old girl is part of an explosive new tranche of documents released by his own Justice Department into the crimes of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The bombshell claim, which the White House says was unfounded and false, was made in an FBI file dated from August last year linked to an investigation into the Alexander brothers, 3 wealthy Florida siblings who are currently on trial accused of sex trafficking. It contained a spreadsheet of uncorroborated tips made to the FBI with references to Trump, as well as brief details of the Bureau's often limited follow-up. Right, this is what we just read. The friend was allegedly forced to perform oral sex on Trump as a 13 or 14 years old girl. So it's whether or not you believe these different allegations. We now know that Melania had also traded emails with Ghislaine. We know that Melania, I believe, knows Epstein before she knows Trump. Probably she knows Jean-Luc Brunel, before she knows Trump as well, right? And that might be the way they meet. The friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting President Trump during oral sex. And here's what we just read. And here's the email that's showing it, that proves it, right? So you can check out this Daily Beast article. Hochul moves to ban ICE collaboration contracts for New York police. Socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani cheered the action. So she doesn't want ICE coming in. They want to keep these illegal aliens in place. They want to keep the scam going. Does Jeffrey Epstein have a secret son? Sarah Ferguson congratulated the pedophile on birth of his baby boy. Jeffrey Epstein calls himself a Tier 1 sex predator.
Tier 1's the hot 3 sexual predator.
Tier 1.
What's Tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, it's
the lowest.
The lowest.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question. Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember the devil is somebody
devil's
knows
what?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
Satan is at the number 1 or 2 archangel, and the reason he goes to hell and leads the rebellion is because he can't be the top guy. And his thing is, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
I saw that in a movie.
Okay, so I don't know what that tells us. Not much. This doesn't appear to be a guy who's too worried about anything, right? And that's him talking to Bannon, of course, right? Emails reveal new theory about whom Jeffrey Epstein was really working for. Was he working for Putin? I don't know. Maybe. Does he have a secret son? That would be interesting if he does. Where is that person? What's going on with silver? Still down $6.45. Seems to have sort of leveled out for the moment in terms of going down. I don't know how much longer they can control it on the downside. Probably not much longer is my guess. That's all I got for you right now. I hope you guys are doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. We're in a really strange place right now where all these groups are trying to vie for power. There's still groups like the Black Sun who are running Trump, who I don't think are good. I don't trust who this Trump is the real Trump and he's doing the right thing. Said that before. If one of you has blonde hair and one of you doesn't, then who's the real person? When are we going to get to a point where things make sense again? I don't know. It's obvious we're being kept in a chaos loop, but the question is for how long, and is this going to stop our ascension process, or eventually it's not going to stop it anymore? It's not going to be able to hold us back because they can only produce so many negative incidents over and over before they run out of gas. I don't know what to tell you. Let me see if I have any notes. Nothing makes much sense anymore. No, I don't have any notes new. We're sort of at the point now where like talk is kind of cheap, right? We need to see concrete results. We need to see people arrested. We need to see public tribunals, people being hung, the people manipulating the gold and silver markets brought to account and held to heel, the people manipulating different financial institutions and different government agencies need to be brought to term, held to account and arrested. All the sex criminals and the sex crimes need to be, all the stuff that was going on in Ukraine needs to come out. None of these things have happened yet. We're sort of in this place where all these people are saying, oh, all this stuff is happening and all this stuff is going on, but we're not seeing any of the really major things that we need to see where everybody would just wake up instantly if we could see it, right? Why don't you show the human trafficking underground in Ukraine where organ harvesters are working and cutting people's organs out of their body? Why doesn't that ever come out? Why don't the dumps ever come out, the photos of them or kids in the dumps? Why doesn't that ever come out? Why doesn't any piece of information ever come out that could wake everybody up right away? Instead, we're sort of fed this chaos loop and Epstein files and this and that and money laundering and this, but we never see the big. And then you hear about 2020 and Fulton and the FBI is making arrests. But you never see anything happen. And you're going towards midterms that are going to be, I'm assuming, held with Dominion machines. And you're still using the GEM system, which I told you could ring the elections using GEMs too, right? 20 states are still using that. So I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. You can see the people that are trying to rule the world now. It's Peter Thiel, it's AI, it's Altman, it's Oracle, it's Ellison, it's Facebook, it's people like this that are their minions. How they get the information. That's what people like all the social media is. It's just the way that you can give them your info for free and then they can enter it into their systems. And once they have all the data centers set up and have all your information and everybody's online and everyone is using their digital currency, they'll be ready to cement their power. They're very close. But at the same time, we're very close to unseating them. Probably closer than we've ever been to maybe becoming sovereign ourselves. That's yet to be determined. So friends, I hope you're staying up. I hope you're staying positive about where we are. I think eventually us staying positive is what destroys these people. So I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. Think about for a second, what is it to stop anybody from, hey, I got some silver, you want some silver, what's to stop me from meeting you on a street corner or somewhere in a private, where we have a private transaction between both of us that the government does not have anything to do with? Cash exchanges hands or barter, whatever we both agree on. And a transaction is done in a private setting that the government has no access to, where no taxes are paid, and nothing is, right? And I sell some of my silver to a private person who wants to buy some of it, and we agree on a price. The government shouldn't have anything to do with that. But yet, if I want to go in to 48th Street to a jeweler or to a pawn and buy a 10-ounce silver bar, I got to give him my ID. Or to sell. I think to sell you have to give your ID, which I shouldn't have to. It's none of the government's business. Shouldn't be. So friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching. The other thing is we should be able to walk into a bank and turn in your silver and your gold. I don't see why banks don't deal in silver and gold they used to. Why don't they still do it? We should bring back the silver and the gold notes where you can take a $100,000 gold note overseas if you want to reestablish yourself on or open a company there, and you could travel safely. Friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching. I'm at the end of my rope with trying to cover this nonsense with these people. We really are well past the point of where we should have had a lot of more things and told to us. We're well past the point where we should have had a lot of these technologies released to us. And the fact that none of these things have happened has me highly concerned. And so I'll watch and continue to report the factual events that I see happening as they happen, which is what I've been doing this whole time. I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NP News, signing off for now.